All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session, our lunchtime learn on microlearning, the what, when, and why. Great to see you all here today. Thank you so much for taking some time out to hang out with us this Arvo. Just a quick note, you can ask questions in the chat if you have any questions to go through. It is a very short session today, so if there's any killing questions that you want to get out that we can leave till the end of the session, that's cool, just if you want to hang on to them till then. If not, throw them in the chat. I'll try and get to them as we go through. But yeah, it's really exciting to see you guys. We will be recording the session, so you will see you will receive a link to this video after the actual session itself. But it's 12 o'clock, so we might get underway. So welcome everyone. My name is Matt Blackstock. I am the Senior Learning Designer at Be Online Learning. And I'm also certified articulate trainer, and I'll be taking you through just some ideas or some essentials in regards to microlearning this afternoon. Just if you haven't thought about it, or you have been thinking about it, or even if you're just curious to say, what's this all about? What's going on there? So this is kind of a real short, sharp, quick little primer on microlearning to get your, I guess, kind of thinking about where you might be able to use it within yourselves. Just a quick word on ourselves, Be Online Learning. So we are the Articulate Certified Training Partner in Australia and New Zealand. So we have a whole heap of different products and services available. So if you've got any questions in regards to these after the session, I'd encourage you to drop us an email or throw them in the chat. We have a whole heap of different products and services. Birch is our new holistic learning platform, which we've designed to make learning feel natural again. Now, we launched this in October last year in Las Vegas at DevLearn. We've had so much interest and a lot of stuff. And if you're interested in looking at a learning management system built from the ground up, not only to give the best to our learners, but also our admin, our supporters, our coaches, our mentors, etc., I'd encourage you to check Birch out. And I'll pop a link in the chat at the end of the session today. We're also using this cutting-edge responsive design of Birch. We can provide a turnkey learning solution, which is our learning platform e-learning catalog, and it will deliver a perfect experience for everyone across all devices. So we have a lot of compliance and business-based courses that come as part of your Birch purchase, or that we could look at organising with you separately. They're all built in Rise and Storyline. They've got media, interactions, workplace scenarios, whole heap of bookmarking and knowledge checks, and we do keep them up to date with the latest legislative changes to ensure your organisation meets its compliance requirements. So again, if you're keen on that, I'll throw a link up at the end. We also develop custom content. We've also got a pre-built course library we call Rapid Course, which allows you to buy the course, and you'll also get the source files. So unlike a lot of organizations that might sell you the final product but not actually give you the source files, we give you the source files. So once you buy them, you can then use them to update, design, develop, and change as you need to. And all of those programs are built using articulate programs. As I mentioned, we do deliver the certified training program across Australia and New Zealand, and we also offer the e-learning design essentials workshop, which provides a bit more information on instructional design and also preparation before you actually start building your courses and Articulate. So that looks at more of the instructional design and project management side of e-learning design and development. So that's it. There's the gratuitous plug, done. Let's move on and do what we're talking about today, which is microlearning. What is it? Why do we use it? What is it not? When would you use it? How do you build it? Some examples of where you might possibly use microlearning in your own L&D offering. And then also what articulate tools you can use for microlearning. And I've got some demos and examples that I've built for a little while. And we'll share those with you, and then some links just to finish up with as well. Name of the course, name of the Rapid course, or the e-learning design essentials course, Lisa? I'm not sure which one you're referring to there, but I'll answer that question towards the end. So that's what we're going to look at today with microlearning. Now, a lot of people, it's one of those buzzwords that's kicking around. A lot of people kind of go, well, what's it all about? Why should we be interested in microlearning? What's the basis behind it? And here's just some definitions I've pulled out, one from good old Wikipedia, just to see what they say, but also from other people that have worked in this microlearning space for a while as well. And as you can see, Wikipedia says it involves short-term focused strategies, especially designed for skill-based understanding, learning, or education. Shannon Tipton from eLearning Rebels says it's a short burst of focused right-sized content to help people achieve a specific outcome. And Carla Torgensen, who did a big keynote speak at DevLearn in October of last year on microlearning itself, she said it's a single objective that's long enough. So there's a whole heap of different ideas in regards to what microlearning is all about and what an actual definition is. Of course, I've got to throw my own hat in the ring. And for me, This is an absolute definition of what it is. It's a short piece of learning. It addresses a specific practical skill, and it is, quote, just long enough. Now, what's just long enough mean? Well, as we go through the session today, you'll see that as well. So here is a sketch note of Carla Torgenson's speech that she did at DevLearn all about microlearning. So there's some great information here in a one piece of paper, which kind of talks about what it's all about. And I'm going to get into the ins and outs in regards to it, but I just want to kind of share this with you just to show that microlearning is really forefront of mind, and a lot of people are looking at how they can use it to support their own learning and development within their organization, or if they are a developer, how they can use it to assist their clients as well. But before we get into all that, why? What's the big deal? Why is this thing called microlearning a thing? Why are organizations investing time and energy into it? And look, what's wrong with the good old-fashioned workshop or e-learning module? Well, when you think about it, workshops and e-learning modules, they have some pros and cons. Workshops, there's a financial commitment and a financial investment to get those up and running. Now, if you're creating those for a corporate organization, not only are you paying your attendees to come, you're also paying their replacements to cover them while they're at training. And so there's a big cost expense there when it comes to a face-to-face workshop. The other thing is, after a 2-day workshop, they might only remember a small fraction of what they actually cover. A standalone e-learning module, again, there's a time investment required to complete a module that may take anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes or to 3 hours, like I've seen some people, but that's another whole debate which we could talk about, but we're not going to do that today because that'll take up all our time. But it also depends on how the module's been built. You know, if someone's just gone, look, here's theory, here's theory, here's theory, your learner's going to be fast asleep and snoring away before you know it. How much are they actually going to remember? Now, granted, bits and pieces of it may be remembered, but when you kind of throw together a workshop or throw together an e-learning module, you may have more of a shotgun or fire hose effect. Let's just spray everything at them and hopefully something will stick. Okay. So we don't want to do this when it comes to microlearning, and microlearning was kind of used with a bit of research to try and meet a whole heap of needs. So let's look at some research to start with. Number one research is that human beings, we have terrible memories. Okay, shocking memories. In fact, there was a study done back in 1885 by a guy called Hermann Ebbinghaus, and he did some research on what he called the forgetting curve. And the forgetting curve indicates that without some form of reinforcement over a period of time, we will forget a large percentage of what we've learned. For example, if you attend a day's learning workshop, okay, so full day, 1-day workshop, after 4 to 5 days, generally you've forgotten 80% of what was covered in that workshop. Now that's a lot of information. It's a big loss of information. And you know, human beings, we just forget stuff easily. You know, that's just part of who we are. So how do we combat that? Well, there's been 2 bits of research over the years that have come into place to try and combat this forgetting effect, this forgetting curve. The first bit is called the spacing effect. And the spacing effect is a phenomenon whereby learning is greater when studying spread over a period of time. Okay, so rather than having a whole heap of stuff done in a single session, this information is spaced out over a period of time, and this will allow you to actually learn that information much better. What the spacing effect does, it says, look, if you're going to cram all this information, you're going to do all this stuff in a small period of time, it's not going to be as effective as if you're studying it at intervals over a longer period of time. So if you're studying information or learning something new, you're much more likely to remember it if you're doing it over a period of time, not just in one short period of space, whether that be a 2-day workshop or a 20-minute e-learning module. It's got to be longer than that. Now, sometimes we don't have the resources to do that. So the next thing is what we call spaced repetition. Now, this is a learning technique that incorporates increasing intervals of time between subsequent review of previously learned material in order to exploit the spacing effects. All right, so what does that all mean? Well, this is kind of what it means in a nutshell. Researchers such as Will Thalheimer have taken this concept and they've created this learning technique called spaced repetition that incorporates increasing intervals of time between subsequent review of previously learned material in order to exploit the spacing effect. Okay, by having a spaced review of something we've learned over time, less of the content is generally forgotten. So if you have a look at this first graph here, we can see our stock standard forgetting line. Okay, so over 24 hours to a week to a month, it shows us how much we forget. However, if we have a review, and if we have that review pretty much immediately or soon after the actual session itself, Yeah, Liz, a good example. I'm trying to do an example, right? So with this, if we have that review point, we can see that the amount we remember is actually increased. Okay, but this is only with one spaced review. So Thalheimer and research said, look, if you do this review over a period of time, so let's do it immediately, let's do it 24 hours later, let's do it let's do it like a week later, let's do it a month later, you can see that research has shown that we're more likely to remember what we've covered. So by spacing it over a period of time, we remember what we've learned and we can apply it much better. So does microlearning fit into this idea of spaced repetition? Well, yes, it does. Microlearning allows us to provide those short review pieces that allow a learner to embed what they've learned over a period of time. Okay, so that's kind of what the research is saying. If we spread it out over more time, we're going to be more likely to learn. But, there's other research that does this as well. Here's an example of really good repetition, okay? This is a website called Duolingo. If you ever want to learn a second language, Duolingo is one way you can do that. And it takes this whole approach of spaced repetition really well. It spaces lessons out over much smaller interactions, and it also revisits words covered in earlier interactions to assist in embedding that terminology. Also, it's available over a whole heap of modes. You can do it via the web online, you can access it via the App Store with your iPhone or Google Play via your Android or a tablet or whatever the case may be. Now that's a point I'm going to come back to in a moment, but Duolingo is a good example of where they've used this space effect. All right, but what about the workplace? Okay, that's all fine and dandy and sounds good, but what about the workplace? If we're designing for a corporate audience, there's some other interesting research findings that also support this idea of microlearning, and it kind of comes back to some best practice we're going to have a look at as well. So here's some 4 key points of best practice when it comes to corporate learning, which gives us some more information about why we could possibly use microlearning. The first one is that microlearning is no good if it's too short. People can't and they won't engage fully. So that's why we back in my definition, I mentioned that whole idea of it's got to be long enough. It's really impossible to give a time limit to microlearning. And part of that reason, as I said in the definition, it's got to be long enough. Look, it might be 3 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, it might be 30 seconds. But whatever we do, we still need to be able to grab our learners' attention. We need to tell them what's in it for them and also tell them why they should give a damn. Why do they care about this thing that they're learning? So if you're only if you're going microlearning 30 seconds, microlearning 1 minute, microlearning 3 minutes, if you're just trying to work to that time length, you're not giving yourself enough time to give it justice and allow the learners to really get into it and get engaged and find out why they should care about it. Second thing is content has to be able to stand alone. It's not about breaking an existing program into smaller units. So you don't take like a 2-hour video and say, hey, let's convert this to microlearning. Let's break it down into 2-minute lengths. Okay, that's not what it's all about either, because each of those 2-minute lengths don't stand alone. They rely on what's gone before and also what's coming up. This turns the whole training into a start-stop process. Learning becomes inconsistent, becomes fragmented, and there's also added effort on the learner to remember, where the heck am I up to? And what did I review last time? Am I up to part 6? Am I up to part 8? I don't know. A lot of you can probably relate to this third point. Workers, strangely enough, have limited patience. Who would have thought it? They want to be able to finish a task and move on to the next one within a reasonable time frame. If they feel something's bogging them down or preventing them from getting on with their day, they will get frustrated and they'll get negative towards it really, really quickly. And the last bit of best practice when it comes to learning in the workplace is that even if they do have more time available for a task, so say they've got an hour put aside to go through their learning or whatever the case may be, it generally won't happen because interruptions continue to occur in the workplace because strangely enough, they've got their real job to do. It's not just about sitting there and doing their microlearning. They've got projects that are demanding their attention. They've got customers knocking on their door. They've got clients. They've got colleagues. They've got meetings. They've got communications. All of this stuff is clamoring for their attention. In fact, one bit of research I read said that on average, people get interrupted every 9 minutes during their workday, whether that be through an email digging up on their screen or a phone call or whatever the case may be. So that's a really big challenge we've got to work against when it comes to L&D. However, with microlearning, if we keep these practices in mind, it can be relatively effective and it's not going to add any additional burden on the learner to get through their normal corporate workday. Heck, they might even enjoy it. Who would think? So this is the why of microlearning. Why is it important? It helps us take advantage of the spacing effect via spaced repetition, and it fits into the best practice finding for workplace learners. So this is kind of the why. Why do we do it? Why is it important? Why should we look at it? Okay, so that's all fine. So what is and what is not microlearning? So let's look at this in a bit more detail. Okay, first up, it's not chunking, breaking down, or to be continued. As mentioned previously, it gets too fractured and there's too much of a cognitive demand to remember where the learner left off. If you turn a 20-minute video into 10 2-minute videos, you've got the increased annoyance factor of what the heck did I just watch and which video am I up to? Because I've just been interrupted every 9 minutes and now I've got a meeting to get to and I've got to come back and get the learning done. What am I up to? So that's microlearning is not that. It's not just about breaking stuff down. It's also not just video only. Like for a long time, I'm going, yeah, it's a video, it's a 3-minute video, it's a 2-minute video, it's a 30-second video, it's whatever the case may be. It's not just a video. It could be a job aid. It could be a scenario. It could be a couple of quick reflective questions. It could even be an audio file. I've seen one of our clients do a quick little podcast, and the podcast is literally 45 seconds long. You know, a quick little update on what's happening. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be only a video. It could be a whole heap of other things as well. Another thing I've seen kicking around the place is it's got to be less than 5 minutes. Okay, well, it could be 5 minutes. It could be 5 minutes, but is that meeting the just long enough factor? That's the deciding factor. It doesn't have to be less than 5 minutes if it needs 7 minutes, or it doesn't have to be less than 5 minutes if it actually needs 12 minutes. You know, so these are kind of the things I want to say. This is not what microlearning is. Okay, so what is it then? It is just-in-time learning. And I'm going to say this here, it's just in time, not just in case. Okay, we're not throwing a whole heap of stuff at our learners just in case they're going to come across a particular situation. It's just in time. It's to go, okay, here it is. This is something that you need now. This is the information which will help you meet that need. It's also short. It's specific. It has one idea, one objective, one concept, or a specific behavior it's focusing on. It's not focusing on 5 or 6 different behaviors. It also needs to be immediately applicable. No theory, no timelines, no expensive histories or backstories. It's, let's be pragmatic. This is what you need to know. This is the process you need to do, or this is the behavior you need to show, or this is the step-by-step process you need to understand. So this is what it is all about. And also, it needs to be available for the learner to access on their terms. It has to be ease of use, whether that's via a mobile, a desktop, a tablet, some sort of other digital media, whether that be a video, an audio file, whatever. It's whatever suits them, so they can grab that information, get the information they need, and then move on and get out. It also needs to be easy to find. If it's buried within the depths of your LMS, they aren't going to find it, they aren't going to access it. So it needs to be up there in their face so they can find it really, really easily. Okay, so what type of learning is microlearning best suited for? Well, the best type of learning it's suited for is review, practice, or extension. It's not suited for something brand new, something complicated, or something that needs to be covered in depth. Okay, remember, we go back to our spaced repetition. It's about giving people the option to embed stuff they've learned. So let them review, let them practice, and let them get extension information as well. How do we build it? Well, very, very straightforward. And here's a model that you can use, which will assist as well. Microlearning is a very agile development. It's really going, okay, what do our learners need and how can we meet that need now to ensure that the gap that we can see, that learning gap we can see, is being addressed, and we're giving them the skill, behavior, or action they need to actually achieve that learning outcome. So we need to define it, we need to review to make sure we're all on the same page, we need to get it developed. Now I've got multiple reviews there. Now you might have 1 review, 2 reviews, whatever, but ultimately it's about speed to process. Can we get something that's quality and effective out to our people? And then once we've deployed it, let's evaluate it as well. So here we go. Too often developers get told by the powers that be that, hey, we need a learning program. They come into their office, they dump a whole heap of resources on their desk, and if they're lucky, they'll get a subject matter expert to help out. Then it's like, away you go. So then off they go, they create a learning program, and that program's made up of modules and topics and screens, whatever the case may be, bang, 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 away they go. Now, this process is missing some fundamental requirements. Now, look, some developers, they might fluke it. They might create an e-learning program that does a great job. Others create a click next a lot and do a quiz, and then the program itself gets lost in the annals of time. Now, this is not good enough for microlearning, and personally, it's certainly not good enough for normal L&D either. But again, that's a conversation to have at another time. For microlearning to be successful, it's going to need a few more things. For any learning program, you need to first have a measurable goal. What are we trying to achieve? Okay. Otherwise, we're just crossing our fingers and we're hoping for the best. All right, so measurable goal, right? Okay, so we need to make a change. We need them to do this particular process, maybe, or action. Well, that leads us to our next question. What do they actually have to do? Is it a behavior? Is it an action? Is it a process? And if you're not sure, ask yourself the question, what does this physically look like? If someone is doing this behavior, this action, or this process, what would I see? This is what gives you your key takeaway from the microlearning. It's also what your microlearning is going to be all about. Okay, so I've got my measurable goal. I know what the key takeaway is. But what's the practical activity? Remember I said, what does this physically look like? What's the practical activity the learner can do to practice the key takeaway? Okay, so let's look at this. How much is too much information for this key takeaway? Ultimately, what is actually required to do the activity? Let's get as pragmatic as we possibly can. And what are the steps to achieve that key takeaway? This is what's going to give you your microlearning activity. This is what the microlearning is going to be all about. And then finally, what's going to be your mode of delivery? How are you going to deliver this microlearning to your learners? Now, there's a whole heap of ways you could do that. You could do it via a screencast. You could create a mini module. You could create a job aid of some description. Okay, so you've got a whole heap of different options there. Secondly, how are they going to access it? Are they going to get it on their desktop computer, by their phone, by their tablet, by other sort of media? Okay, so we've got to think about what's this mode of delivery going to be? How can they get access to it? And the other thing is there may be additional information available to support it, and we'll let them to access that information as an option, but it's not compulsory to pull that extra resources. They can pull it as required, but it's not required to successfully complete the activity. If they're interested, they want to get more information, absolutely, point them in the direction of where they can find information. But ultimately what we want to do here is we want to give them the actual microlearning activity, which gives them that key takeaway. So some examples. You could create a time saver. So handy hints, a guide to a product or a service, whatever the case may be. Another example might be best practice. So you could have people sharing what they've done in a particular situation, kind of the war stories or the Vox pop out man in the street. What have they been doing? Experiences that will demonstrate a particular learning point. Just in time. So you might have a revised product that's a variation of an old one. So a new printer cartridge for a new computer, something like that. You might do troubleshooting. So, everyone's used a photocopier at some time in their life that jams. The greatest example I've seen of a quick microlearning is that most photocopiers these days have a little microlearning lesson built in where they show you how to unjam the actual photocopier or how to replace the toner cartridge. So that's all little examples of microlearning. Post-sale service, maybe there's a flow chart for most common problems people might come across. What's the most common issue or culprit or cause of that? You could look at compliance, so these might be common issues, quick wins. So you might show your learners an example of a compliant interaction. Now this might be good in things like financial advice or a legal contract in those regards. You can show them a best practice example and they can model their behavior on that best practice example. You could also do a company update, so change of executive, stats regarding how the company's going with sales, service, new products, success stories, etc. Or you could even do performance approach support, so remedial training, a how to process, going through maybe something new that's been created. Now, Articulate gives you a whole heap of tools for microlearning. Outside of Storyline, which can develop things like branching scenarios or mini modules, quizzes, games, or infographics, you've also got a lot of the products that come as part of the Articulate subscription. Now, these tools won't do the job for you. You still need to define, develop, and deploy an instructionally sound learning interaction, but they can certainly help you when you're deciding on the mode of your project. So you might use Articulate Peak to create a quick support vid, how to do something. quick troubleshooting, bit of performance support. You could use replay as a product focus with, the webcam recording of the guide on the side, or a coach or a mentor, someone telling us experience they had. You could even use that as part of a podcast. Rise is a fantastic application which will allow you to create a whole heap of stuff quickly that's accessible across all those various devices. So as I said, desktops, phones, tablets, you name it. So flowcharts, references, interactive tours, simple scenarios, curated videos, best of, document repositories, whatever the case may be. So you have a whole heap of different options that you can play with to actually assist. So let me share some with you. So I'll just wait for this to load up. Here we go. So you could use Peak for a quick little process that people need to follow up. So for example, this is just a little Peak process. It's a capture from the web about assigning a policy when it comes to email. Now you guys may or may not be able to hear the audio on that, but this is a quick little example of microlearning. No problems, Peter, that's welcome. So what I've got here is I'm just talking them through the process on how they can assign a policy to an email. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't panic. It's just an example. It shows them that I can would have had a staff meeting or something prior to this, which maybe spoke about assigning policy. And then this is coming back to that idea of giving them that actual repetition, that spaced repetition where they can actually practice and remember what they covered off. So something like this can take me through that process step by step for my learner, and they can access it via their computer, their iPhone, whatever the case may be. I mentioned replay, the guide on the side. Whoa, that's a bit scary. Let's just hit play on that. So with this particular one here, this is the guide on the side, which is generally talking someone through a process. Now, this itself, it's a video. It goes for literally less than 1 minute, but it's a way that we can take them through a series of processes really, really quickly to achieve a particular outcome. Again, this is standalone. There's no expectation for a prerequisite, and it's not saying to be continued to go somewhere else as well. It's going through that particular process to show them what it is, and it gives them that extra bit of human touch, the guide on the side speaking through what it's all about. Storyline. This is a quick little interaction which was created by our partners at Yukon Learning, who are also Articulate certified trainers. And this is where you can create something that's a very little quick step-by-step process. So in this particular one, it's talking about how you use a stand-up paddleboard, how to actually get on the board. Now, you can use this either for yourself as the learner on how to ride one, but it's also a great way that they can share that with their actual clients to help their clients when it comes to how do you actually ride these things. And it's just a very, very quick step-by-step. It's very straightforward. It's got some audio. It says put the board in the water, moves on to the next step, so on and so forth, and they work through the steps. Now, this here itself, that would probably take around about 3 minutes to go through overall. Okay, but that's something we've got developed in Storyline, which actually meets a particular action or a behavior or a process on its own, standalone, takes them through it, goes through the steps as well. Now, I mentioned Rise. Now, Rise is also a great tool when it comes to creating some examples for microlearning as well. So here's 4 different types of microlearning. I've got a process about customer service, so similar to the process you just saw about how you stand on a paddleboard. I've got a TED Talk video, which I've actually found, which I think is great. So yes, I can use a video to take them through. I've also put together an FAQ. So for example, this is on Tupperware plastics. Okay, everyone's probably got some Tupperware kicking around and drawer at home somewhere. But this is just a quick little preview which can give either a salesperson or even a client some information about the plastics in Tupperware. Now, I'm not going to go through it step by step, but again, this is something that you can develop relatively quickly, which will go through and give the quick information that people might need to know to assist their clients in making a decision on what type of product to purchase. Now, because it's built in Rise, the other fantastic thing about it is that it's fully responsive and gets back to the whole idea of access I spoke to before. People can access this via their phone, they can access it via their tablet, or if they want to, they can also go and access it via a desktop or a website or whatever the case may be. So FAQ, that's another good example that you can put together. You could also use it for more involved ones. So for example, over here, I've got my Printmeister printers. Again, this is a bit of sales training, but there's a brand new range of printers that have been released. So the learners here would have gone through some sort of formalized training elsewhere, whether that's with the client or whether that's via an eLearn module. But this is part of that spaced repetition. So again, this is something that says, look, following our sales meeting, here's a review activity. And it's a scenario where they've got to match printers to a client's need. So again, it's very straightforward. If we take it from the iTablet point of view, it talks about the range, gives them a quick review on the range, and then it also takes them through to the scenarios. And in the scenarios, they get given, here's the customer, which one of those particular products would best suit this customer's needs. And when they make that selection and submit it, it'll give them feedback to help them embed that knowledge again. So why is this particular printer the best one for them? It's because it meets these particular needs of the customer. If they select the incorrect one, so we move down to our next scenario here, what it will do is it'll actually give them feedback on why that's not a good match for their needs, but it'll also assist them in regards to learning and applying that knowledge about that brand new product range they've just looked at. All right. And last but not least, we come back here. Oh, as I mentioned, if you find like a TED video or a YouTube video or a Vimeo one, or even a video you've created yourself in-house, you could actually have this as kind of a quick little video library where people can come into, where you might be trying to change a behavior. So in this particular instance, this is just a video from TED, which talks about the idea that the biggest impact on your life and health might be, rather than having a meeting in a meeting room, sitting down with paper, go for a walk. Have a walking meeting, walk around the block and have the meeting while you go for a walk. So all of these are examples on how you can use articulate tools to assist you when it comes to actually presenting some micro-learning. All right. And that, guys, at 12:33, I've gone over by a whole 3 minutes, dear oh dear, is it. So it's a very, very quick kind of primer to get your mind thinking about micro-learning. As I said, we will send this video out to you so you've got it to refer to as a reference. Here's a couple of other links that I would probably recommend. I'll throw them in the chat too so you can access them. So there's a few links for our own organization here, so if you're after any further information on what we offer, but some really nice examples of how spaced repetition and the spacing effect have been used. There's the link for Duolingo. Google also have created a what they call Your Primer, which is about learning business and marketing skills. And they've taken this micro-learning process to a place where, again, you can do very, very similar to what you're learning with the language of the Duolingo, but this talks about marketing and business skills. TED Talks, always a great one to look at for some great ideas when it comes to looking at some ideas that are worth spreading, of course. The eLearning Heroes site, there's a link there, like 10 things you could create instead of an e-learning course. And there's some good examples there of some micro-learning you could use as well, which could further kind of embed the information we've spoken about today. And finally, eLearning Heroes also has some great examples where you can have a look at and get some inspiration for your own micro-learning. All right, guys, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. So thank you so much for joining us today for this quick little half hour. If you have any further information, I'm going to hang around now for 5-10 minutes. Happy to answer any questions. If not, jump on those links that I've shared through with you. We've got a blog post there about microlearning, which is kind of a partner, I guess, resource to this module. So there you go. You can use that as part of your spaced repetition. And yeah, if you have any questions whatsoever, guys, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for your assistance and your participation this afternoon. No worries, you're welcome. No worries, Adam. Thanks, mate. Thanks, Rosemary. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Nat. Yes, Kath. So the training that we offer is a professional development program. It's called eLearning Design Essentials. It's offered both as a face-to-face workshop and also as an online webinar. So what I might do is I'll grab that link. I'll pop the link up in the chat for you. So you've got access to it as well. And that'll give you a bit of an overview in regards to what it's all about and whether it's something that you might be interested in as well. So I'll just pull it up on the page. We've got our next session starting in March. It's running the 19th to the 20th of March. What am I looking for? Here I am. No worries, Donna. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. All right. Scroll down, Matt. That'll help. Here we go. All right. There we go. So that's the link to our e-learning designs essential course. So that looks at everything from instructional design to project management to visual design, all that kind of stuff. Rata. No, so with that library of resources with Birch, I'll just bring that up for you. So I've got some more information. If you've done, sorry, Kath, just to finish that question, if you've done the certified articulate training, that focuses on just teaching you about how to use articulate tools. So how to use Storyline, Rise, etc. E-learning essentials takes a step back before you even touch that. So it looks at, okay, how do I set my e-learning project up for the best success? Stakeholder management, subject matter experts, how to get a good relationship with them, how to deal with them, how to create a visual design concept, how to show return on investment for stakeholders. So one of those really great things to have up your sleeve so you can show people the value that you've provided. Here's that program I was talking about. Liza, sorry, that's terrible. So that's the library that's available as part of our Birch Learning platform as well. Okay, so yeah, Kath, so it looks at more of the project management, Lisa, thank you, sorry, Lisa. So it looks more of the project management side of things as opposed to the actual how do I use Storyline or how do I use Rise, etc. No worries, you're welcome. All right, thanks guys, have a great afternoon and we'll catch up with you at the next event that we hold.